Uhuru, this is White Solidarity with Black Power. Political education and campaign updates from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the organization of white people under the leadership of and accountable to the African People's Socialist Party. We organize in the white community for reparations to African people.
Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili, and I'm Casey Mackey, and this is my comrade, Hallie Murray.
Uhuru.
And we are members of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, an organization of white people that was created by and accountable to and working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the Black Power Revolutionary Party of our generation. So I just wanted to read first our pledge of solidarity with African people. I recognize that this unjust system built on slavery and genocide must be overturned. I pledge my solidarity with the struggle of Africans, indigenous, and other colonized peoples for self-determination, reparations, and independence in our lifetime. I recognize that Africans inside the US, Europe, and throughout the world suffer from a lack of self-determination and control of their own resources. I recognize that this system is built on war and violence against oppressed peoples, including the ongoing war against the African community that has destroyed the lives of countless black men, women, and children, such as Mike Brown, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland, Dominique Battle, Charlena Lyles, and so many others. I pledge my solidarity with the struggle of Africans and other colonized peoples to reclaim their land, labor, resources, and self-determination. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Do you want to read tell them people our 3 principles of unity?
Yes, so the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, we have 3 principles of unity. The first one is that we are under the leadership of and are accountable to the African People's Socialist Party. 2, we believe that African people have the right to lead their own struggle, lead their own self-determined struggle. And 3, we organize in the white community for reparations to African people. These are our 3 principles of unity.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
So today our topic is Black community control of the police.
Yes.
And in the news we've seen, white power doing what white power does, the murdering of African people by the police that happens every 18 hours in this country. And most recently we've seen the exoneration of the cop that killed Philando Castile on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
The Philando Castile and his girlfriend and a child in the back were pulled over, and the cop shot Philando Castile, and it was filmed by his girlfriend on Facebook Live, and he just walked free. The killer just walked free. So the solution in the Uhuru movement believes is not body cams, because we see these cops kill black people on Facebook Live for the public to see, and yet they still walk free. So body cams are not going to work. So the Uhuru movement is fighting for black community control of the police. And we've also seen most recently the murder of Charlena Lyles, a pregnant mother of 3, who called the police because of a suspected burglary in her housing unit. And when they arrived, they shot her. At least one of her children were present. So this is outrageous. This goes on all the time, but we see it more and more, and we're seeing a lot more outrage at the colonial violence. So this is the system. It was built on the enslavement of African people, and the state can kill African people with impunity and get approval. That's what happens in this country every single day, and enough is enough. And the Uhuru movement is fighting back. So our topic today is the solution, Black community control of the police.
Yes.
And also why white people should join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement to stand in solidarity with a Black Power movement that is working to end this stuff altogether. So we're going to be reading an article from the Burning Spear newspaper, which is the official newspaper of the African People's Socialist Party, the voice of the international African working class revolution, and it's called "We Must Demand Black Community Control of the Police." Hallie, you want to start us off?
Uhuru, yes. This is about the recent murder of Edward Crawford, who was a black activist and community organizer in Ferguson. And the thing is, he is the 7th black organizer in Ferguson, which is a small city, and even smaller still, the community who are organizing. He's the 7th black activist found shot in the head in his car, set on fire. And the police are claiming this is a suicide, which is outrageous because, as we'll see in this article, he had a really great family, he had a new job and apartment, And imagine 7 of your friends in your small area just dead, found shot in the head with their car set on fire in this,
And all of them that were involved in the Ferguson uprising, the courageous, amazing Ferguson uprising following the death of 18-year-old Mike Brown, who was shot by the police and laid in the street for 4 hours.
This is not a coincidence. This is state terror and colonial violence. So let's get started here. So, we must demand black community control of the police, is the article from the June issue of The Spear. In Ferguson, Missouri, yet another frontline warrior and prominent activist of the African resistance in Ferguson has met an untimely end. Colonial media sources reported that 27-year-old Edward Elijah Crawford died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head on the evening of May 4th, 2017. You may remember Edward Crawford as best as the young man immortalized in the Ferguson uprising photo, holding a bag of chips in one hand and tossing a police-deployed gas canister back in the direction of the pigs, away from a group of children and other protesters with the other hand. The image won the Post-Dispatch a Pulitzer Prize for breaking news photography, while leaving Edward to defend himself in court against charges of interfering with a police officer and assault. In a statement, Edward Crawford Sr., the father of the young activist, said it wouldn't make sense that his son would be so upset that he would take his own life. Edward had just acquired a new apartment and job, and the young father of 4 was in love with his children. He also stated that he'd seen his son just a couple of days prior and that he was in good spirits. Edward Sr. says district detectives in charge of investigating Edward Jr.'s death are being hush-hush about it. The International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, in PDUM, is clear that the state lies all the time and cannot be trusted. It is also clear to us that the state murdered brother Edward Jr.
Since the initial uprising surrounding Michael Brown Jr.'s death at the hands of killer cop Darren Wilson on August 9, 2014, several of the participants of the Ferguson Rebellion have turned up dead. Something hitting far too close to home to be dismissed as mere coincidence. One of the most high-profile instances is the murder of Darren Seals in early September 2016. Though Darren's death has been investigated as a homicide and Edward's a suicide, the number of incidents among the small area Ferguson, and smaller still the portion of the community that participated in the uprising, a total of 7 recorded deaths, has many locals unsettled. While revolutionary organization is necessary in order to gain freedom from the colonial state, it is also necessary that revolutionaries understand how to move under the scrutiny of the state. The purpose of the state is to protect the economic and political interests of the white ruling class at the expense of the African working class.
Uhuru. It is imperative that revolutionaries learn and understand the strategies of our enemy, understand what the state's objective for keeping us oppressed is, and struggle for organization to keep each other safe. We are losing a lot of activists partly because they are not won to the value in organization. This is actually more counter-revolutionary than they may understand because it strips the resistance of some of their strongest forces through state-sanctioned assassinations. We must make and continue to make revolutionary demands like black community control of the police. Points 18 and 19 of In PDUM's Revolutionary National Democratic Program state that, quote, "We demand African community control of the schools, the police, and all the institutions of coercive colonial state power that wreak perennial havoc within our colonized community. We demand the immediate withdrawal of the terroristic police and military troops from the African community and their replacement with African liberation forces whose struggles in defense of our community against our oppression demonstrate their loyalty to our community and their willingness to serve in its interest," end quote. We must make the struggle for black community control of the police that occupy our communities. These revolutionary demands and more should be won throughout our communities. The demand for black community control of the police means that our people control who is hired, trained, and fired as cops in our neighborhood. Any cop who murders an African would have to answer to the black community. We urge all of our readers to come into revolutionary organization, join in PDUM, and build black community control of the police committee. It is through revolutionary demands like this that we will protect ourselves against the oppressive colonial state. Rest in Uhuru, Edward Crawford. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
So just to clarify, INPDUM, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, is the mass organization of the party, of the African People's Socialist Party. And it is a place for African people and other colonized so-called people of color to be part of this organization. And the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is the mass organization for white people to be involved in the same kind of work. So if you're white out there, you can join Uhuru Solidarity Movement. It's the equivalent of INPDUM, but for white people. And that's what Casey and I are both members of. We're also both members of the African People's Solidarity Committee, which is the cadre level organization, and USM is the mass organization. So I just wanted to explain what that was there.
Uhuru. And because of my work with the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, that's how I got plugged into the Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign, of which I am secretary. 3 teenage black girls who were chased into a pond at 95 miles per hour down a one-way road and by the police, who smashed the back of their car into the water, then stood around while they drowned to death and held a conversation like they were at home just chilling while the girls screamed for their lives, and then put out a slander campaign and lies saying that the girls, that they did everything they could to save them, but then later leaked footage showed that the cops just stood around and did nothing. So this campaign is so significant because of the mother of Dominique Battle, one of the girls who was drowned, who considers all 3 of the girls her daughters. Kunde Mwambita has taken a stand and said enough is enough. And she has taken this amazing, brilliant stand when so many families who this happens to are just given hush money and forced and coerced by the state to be silent and say, oh, don't blame the police or call for jail, just take this money and stay quiet, and they're manipulated in their most vulnerable moments of pain, having violently lost a loved one, a family member that they can never hug again, hold again. So, all this relates to why we need black community control of the police. And in regards to the killer cop that killed Philando Castile being exonerated, Valerie Castile, the mother of Philando, went on Facebook Live and said enough is enough. And this was also a very courageous stance of her to make. So the Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls Committee put out a statement that says, the Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign salutes Valerie Castile's courage to speak out against the disgusting exoneration of the killer pig who murdered her son, Philando. Every time an African is murdered, it's a system doing what it's built to do. Lynch African people with impunity and approval from the state. And every time an African child is murdered, the colonial media and sellouts rush to the mothers to exploit their pain, force them to apologize for anything their child may have done, manipulate them to say the right thing. That's why Valerie Castile's courageous stance to go live and say, F the police, is so important. Because like Kunde, the mother of Dominique, Valerie is also a mother that refuses to be silenced. And Kunde is why the campaign for the 3 Drowned Black Girls is so important. Here is a mother whose daughters were murdered by the pigs, and she has stood up and said, enough is enough. Sheriff Bob Gualtieri and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, you have not broken me, and you can keep your hush money. I'm coming. Valerie Castile has also expressed on her Facebook that she is coming for justice. The Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign lifts up Kunde Mwambita and Valerie Castile for their courageous stance as beacons of resistance for what it looks like to truly love your children and refuse to be silenced or back down. The campaign for the Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls is fighting relentlessly to raise the legal fees for Kunde's lawyer to file a wrongful death suit against the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. And every Wednesday we mobilize over 100 people around the country to make calls to the Sheriff's Department to demand the immediate resignation of Sheriff Bob Gualtieri and criminal charges brought against the deputies involved in the murder of Dominique, Lanaya, and Ashanti. So if you are tired of seeing these killer cops walk free after they murder African sons, African brothers, African daughters, please donate to the legal fees to jail the killer cops or host a fundraiser in your city. You can donate at justice4dominiquebattle.com, and you can join the weekly call-ins and do that by contacting justice3dbg at impedum.org to get involved. No more mourning mothers. We will win justice and the freedom for all African people from this vicious system that functions on their murder. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Wow. Thank you, Casey, for reading that. And
we're going to read one more article.
There's yet another article in the same issue of the Burning Spear about Black community control of the police and about another police murder of a young African.
A 15-year-old.
15-year-old Jordan Edwards. So I'm going to read this here. This was in Dallas, Texas. 15-year-old Jordan Edwards was gunned down by killer pig Roy Oliver in Balch Spring, Texas on April 29, 2017. While out patrolling our community, just as the Marines patrol communities in Iraq, Balch Spring pigs showed up at a house party where young people had gathered for an evening of fun. Afterwards, Jordan, along with his 2 brothers and 2 friends, got in their car and began to pull off. Seconds later, Jordan was struck in the head from a rifle shot. Roy Oliver, a soldier in the Imperial Army who had served in Afghanistan, claimed that his life was in danger as the car was backing up and heading his way, and that is why he fired his rifle. Police Chief Jonathan Herber immediately backed Oliver's claim and upheld colonial authority to ensure that Jordan Edwards' murder would be justified. Later, however, with the revelation of video of the murder proving that Oliver's claim was false, Herber stated, quote, "I was unintentionally incorrect yesterday when I said that the victim's vehicle was backing down the road," end quote. A later statement by the police department said, quote, "The vehicle then pulled forward as the officer continued to approach the vehicle, giving verbal commands. The vehicle continued the main roadway, driving away from the officer as an officer shot into the vehicle, striking the passenger," end quote. Herber's retraction of his statement does not bring back young Jordan, nor does it change the relationship that Africans have with the occupying military force known as the police. Jordan Edwards was not just a 15-year-old freshman football player. He was a colonized African, regardless of how great his grades were, how fast he was on the football field, or how much his teachers raved about him. Jordan had no future under colonial domination from the day he was born. Roy Oliver had no intention of ensuring Jordan's safety, that of his brothers, his friends, or any African that night. Oliver also imposed a further psychic trauma on Jordan's brothers, who were kidnapped and held captive overnight. The murder of Jordan Edwards is no different than that of 12-year-old Tamir Rice, who was murdered at the hands of the state. It is no different than that of Trayvon Martin, who was murdered by a white vigilante of the state. The narrative that Oliver was a veteran of the imperialist military who suffered from PTSD presumes that Oliver himself was a victim. This narrative must be refuted. Jordan Edwards is the only victim here, murdered by the same state that hired Oliver. Oliver had been in 2 previous altercations that resulted in him being suspended, attending anger management classes, and attending court in which he was reprimanded by the assistant district attorney. The state that has since fired Oliver to save face in front of the general public after acknowledging previously that he was a danger to the community. The International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement in PDUM stands firmly against the colonial domination of the police force in our communities. Point 19 of our Revolutionary National Democratic Program states, quote, "We demand African community control of the police in our oppressed and exploited communities in the domestic colonies of North and South America, the Caribbean, and Europe. We demand the immediate withdrawal of the terroristic police and military troops from the African community and the replacement with African liberation forces who struggle in defense of our community against our oppression, demonstrate their loyalty to our community and their willingness to serve in its interests. INPDUM demands Black community control of the police, reparations to the family of Jordan Edwards, and that Oliver be sentenced for the murder of Edwards. Join INPDUM's Black community control of the police committee. Uhuru."
Uhuru. Thank you, Hallie.
Uhuru.
Tell the people why white people who are sickened by this should join a Uhuru Solidarity movement.
So if you are disgusted by the daily murders of black people in this country and around the world, if this sickens you, for all the white people out there, join the Uhuru Solidarity movement. Join the Black Power organization that is fighting to end this genocide for good, for once and for all. And to stand up, make a stance and say, not in my name. I don't approve of this. I don't want this done in my name. And we raise reparations to a movement who is seeking to end this genocide. That is what the Uhuru Solidarity movement is. That is the work that we do. We work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to end this once and for all.
Exactly. You know, I think that it's really, we're seeing a lot, I'm seeing a lot more white people just disgusted by this, recognizing that there are two Americas, that there are two realities, that if Charlena Lyles had been a white woman, she would not have been killed by the police. If those 3 drowned black girls had been white girls, they would not have drowned in a pond. If any of these black children were white children, they would not have been killed by the police. Their families would not be slandered in the news. Kunde would not be called a bad mom. There are two Americas, there are two realities. This is colonialism. It's bigger than racism, the ideas in our heads. It's an economic system designed to keep black people down, to keep them killed, to keep them traumatized so that they can't rise up and get back their resources that are being stolen from them every single day, beginning with Europe's assault on Africa. That's why revolution is the only solution. The Uhuru movement doesn't F with this reformist BS. Okay, they are fighting to end the entire system, because until the entire system is ended, this will keep happening. That's what we're trying to win people to understand, and we need you to join us. Join the revolution. Get into revolutionary life, because that is truly the only solution. To what end? To what end? The Uhuru movement is fighting for an entirely new world. They're building an economic base where the workers own the means of production, where African people are united, where they're safe, and they have let white people into the organization to raise the reparations hoarded and stolen in the white community so that we can be in real solidarity with them. So that's why we want you to join. This is really exciting. I used to be so hopeless and aimless, seeing all these murders, wondering, what can I do? I was so depressed. I can't stand for this happening in my name every single day. And then when I met this movement, I saw a real solution. Taking the reparations challenge. It's a campaign of the Uhuru Solidarity movement where everyday white people can use our talents and skills and raise reparations to support the Uhuru movement, which is leading the demand for black community control of the police, which is a democratic demand, a just right of the African community to say that the colonial, terroristic, occupying military force that the police are in their community are removed, and that the black community decides who can police their community, where they have hiring, firing, and training power, and that, like we said we heard in the article, that anyone that hurts an African person would have to answer to the African or black community.
That there'd be justice.
So we want to win people to understand why taking the reparations challenge is directly connected to a solution to end these murders once and for all. So we want you to contact us. Uhuru Solidarity Movement Boston on Facebook, or Uhuru Solidarity Movement on Facebook is the national organization that we're connected to, or email us at usmboston@riseup.net and join our meetings, raise reparations, become a member, because this is the way to end this once and for all.
Uhuru. And for all the white folks out there who consider themselves good white people, consider that Darren Wilson, the police officer who murdered Mike Brown in 2014, white people gave $1 million to Darren Wilson, to the murderer. White people gave $1 million. So we are looking for the white people who want to give $1 million to the Uhuru movement, who want to give money to the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign. We need $18,000 to put these cops on trial and use their evidence in court and get them fired and have justice. So if you consider yourself a good white person, join us, donate to these campaigns. We need these resources. We need these resources to bring justice to the black community. If you're sick of this, if you're sick of the murders, we need material solidarity. That is the work we do in the Uhuru Solidarity movement. We gain material solidarity, resources, money. We return it to African people.
It's not enough to just make a Facebook post. We're in the streets every day, flyering, selling this newspaper that has real solutions, and we need you to help us.
It's not enough to just say Black Lives Matter. It's not enough to just make a poster or a post on Facebook. We need material solidarity. We need actions, tangible resources.
And we know that you can be one, because we were both one.
Uhuru. So you can check us out, uhurusolidarity.org. We have a Facebook page. We have weekly meetings. We have events happening every week. So check us out, and we'll see you next time. Uhuru.
Uhuru.